Hey, everybody, and we are live with Office Hours, episode 10. I can't believe the time has flown by on these so fast. We're on our path to 20, 30, 40, 50, but right now, episode 10. As we get started today, some great news. Just wanted to share with everybody, we just got a contract. We're going to be supporting DLA and helping their finance and some of their larger organization bring in more talent to the for GS civilian roles. So excited. Look for more information on that in the next couple of weeks. But, it's a great pathway to a GS civilian type role working for a Department of Defense agency, Defense Logistics Agency. So we should have a lot more to come. So today's question. So just to recap, last week I started a new process. So for people that attend the live event every Thursday, 2 p.m. office hours, I'm going to give one person a free, I never charge anyway, but like a free coaching, teaching, mentoring session in the preceding week. So basically, I'm going to select one person that's attending, and we're going to do a session. We did one last week. I had a great coaching session with Christian. I posted about it yesterday. We're going to do one again today. So here's to enter yourself into the auction. The question is, do you think the ATS is out to get you? Like that they are an evil AI process that's eating resumes, that they're a black hole, that in some way, shape, or form, you really need to get your resumes ATS friendly in order to be seen by a recruiter for a job. I'd love your honest feedback on it. More than 2 or 3 words gives you a better chance. But I'd love to hear what you think about this. And if you do it during the live episode, at the end of the day, Olivia will work with me to choose one winner. So along those lines, as you talk about the ATS, as you share your thoughts about the applicant tracking system, one of the things that I like to explain to people is the best way to quote unquote beat the ATS, right? The best way to make yourself a best candidate for a role. And this is when you're applying to jobs online. So I did a video yesterday that is like the 3 steps to beating the ATS. And I'll explain this in the end. But the 3 steps to beating the ATS, the first thing I like to say is use a hybrid format resume. So for me, there's 3 typical formats. There's reverse chronological, there's hybrid, and then there's functional. I will say never, ever, ever use a functional resume. I don't care what they teach you. Never use a functional resume. The moment you use a functional resume, and I see it, and most recruiters see it, we automatically assume you don't have the experience for the roles, like the years of experience, that something's missing because you're choosing to focus on specific tasks unrelated to work experience, right? That's the functional. Throw that out. The reverse chronological is okay if you perfectly match, like the jobs the companies, the titles all match, then you're fine with that. I like a hybrid, which is a very short paragraph at the top. People get a little carried away, but maybe a few keywords, not leadership, like keywords relevant to a role, and then roll right into the experience section. So at that first page, when we take a glance, that 6-second glance you hear, at the first page, when you take that glance, you actually get a good first image of the experience. They're fit for the role, maybe some of the education and things like that. That's the hybrid resume. So my first step for my 3-step process to beating the ATS and becoming a best candidate is to use a hybrid resume, right? Short paragraph, few keywords that are relevant to the world experience. The second step is to go into the job description, right? Go into the job description you're applying for, because each resume aligns with a specific job. Go into the job description, go to the must-haves or the requirements section, and grab the 3 to 5 top must-haves. Companies will usually start with the most important and work their way down, right? So you're going to grab the top 3 to 5 must-haves, and you're going to do 2 things. You're going to make 3 things. You're going to make sure that if you put a title on your resume, it matches the title of that job. And in that small paragraph at the top, you're going to speak specifically to those 3 to 5. So if it says, 5 years experience doing XYZ, you're going to say, operations manager with over 5 years experience doing XYZ. And then the second one is experience with data analytics and this and this. You're going to say, 2 years experience working with data analytics on these types of platforms, these results. And the third one is, knowledge of Excel and whatever. You're going to say, comfortable doing pie tables, flip charts, whatever with Excel, right? Running all the algorithms, everything. You're going to literally make your resume at the first paragraph, without a doubt, say you're qualified for this role. And then you make sure that those keywords, the things that you pulled up, are also reflected in the experience section. You want to double tap that. And then the third thing is you need to make sure that if it says 5 years experience doing this, 10 years experience doing this, 3 years experience doing this, that is 100% clearly articulated in the experience section. Like at a glance, I see it. Okay, that's 6 years, right? If you do this, the thing of it is, if you do this, it will get to the recruiter, right? See, what most people get kind of caught up on this beat the ATS thing, right? You're not in a competition with an applicant tracking system, right? You are in a competition with all the other people applying for the role. What an applicant tracking system does is the applicant tracking system is a CRM. So basically what it does, it helps recruiters manage the workflow. So if 200 people apply for a job, it'll come through the ATS, which allows them to structure them, move them to different phases, send them messages. If they're deleted, make sure if they're not qualified, they all get a message that comes back to them. That's what the ATS does. Some of the more advanced ones will use AI to screen and rank them, right? And that's where some people think it's gobbled them up, but the truth of the matter is they didn't have all the content for this job in there, so they'll rank lower. So if you do this, if you make sure it's tailored to the role, that it specifically says that you are a great fit for the role with detailed, actionable results, you will be a best candidate. It's clear, right, at a glance. Now, let's talk about that resume. The next part I like to discuss is about stretching truth. And what I mean by that is it is hard. Let's go into this. Alexander says that everyone is out to get me, or the stupid thing doesn't understand how my military experience translates to needed experience, right? So here's the thing, Alexander, what I like to tell a lot of people is it is not the ATS's job to translate for you or to evaluate that experience as one-to-one. It is not the recruiter's job to figure out and understand how your experience would apply to this. It is the candidate's job. It is the transitioning service member's job to clearly articulate specific experience that demonstrates that you've done that, right? And so how do you do that? If you're not getting the hits you want, you do that through informational interviews. If you talk to 5, 10, 15 people in that job that are successful in industry, and you start focusing on what they do, where they spend their time, their biggest challenges, what metrics they track, then you can look in your background and find things that align specifically with that, snap link it right in there, your resume, and you're golden. You will stand out. The key is you have to do those interviews. You have to do that work. You have to understand what they're looking for, because I'll tell you, say you're applying for an HR manager role, the person that's been working in the HR in the private sector for 6 years knows exactly what an HR manager does, knows exactly what their biggest challenges are, knows what they spend most of their time, knows what metrics they track, and they're putting it in their resume. You have to figure that step out, do the research, and then put it in yourself. But I'll tell you, the beauty of this is we actually have a benefit. We have a bonus over them, and that we have such an engaged community. There's millions of veterans out there that'll spend time with you. So you do the right work. If it is clear that you fit the requirements for a job, you will be a best candidate. So, and there you go, Greg. You got it. Effort. You got it. Not just to tailor it. You have to do the research to know what to tailor it to. You can't just use a tool. And that's what one of the next things I'm going to get to. You can't just use a tool that's going to grab the job description, grab your resume, and tell you what to add. That's not enough. Like, it's not just about taking keywords and add them to your resume. You have to highlight the key accomplishments. You have to speak to their biggest challenges. and sometimes for roles, it is assumed that you would know what that was if you were in that field. So that's where the work comes into it. So talking about those resumes, right? We can stretch, right? I see a lot of people, like, for instance, for me, when I was getting out, I was a sergeant major, and I was going to say I'm an HR director, that I have over 20 years experience, managing people, processes, talent acquisition, manning and staffing, employee relations and whatever, right? I can stretch the truth and find a way to back that up. You can find a way to make years of experience work, right? The generic must have 5 years experience to an XYZ. I did this all the time for some of my other opportunities. They needed 10 years of experience with financial management when I was over at EY. And I would find people that had over 10 years of, just POM, end of year funding, government purchase cards, stuff like that, managing inventory, like the responsible for piece, and you can make it work. And that's okay for the generic years of experience. The challenge is when you get into specific requirements. So if it says, 4 years of experience dealing with, employment law or labor law or unions, right? I saw someone say once, well, like, my experience dealing with the union of, like, government civilians or whatever. And I'm like, I guess. But for most of us getting out, we wouldn't have those hard skills or experience right off the bat. And so what I'll say is it is much harder to stretch hard skills, hard experience if you don't have it, which is why you really need to work with mentors, right? And you have to work with mentors to make sure you're translating your experience appropriately, because, we are a mile wide, an inch deep. And I'll get to that question. Leave it up, please, Olivia. We are a mile wide, an inch deep. And so if you don't have specific experience, right, how do you become a best candidate, right? Well, I'll tell you that if you're gapping specific experience, the recruiter is going to see that. And if they have other candidates, they're going to go with the other candidates. So the only way you overcome that gap is through your network. If there's an executive, there's a hiring manager, someone at the senior levels that knows you're a high performer from engagement, relationships, they know you're a high performer, they will bring you in at that level, because they know high performers are 400% more productive than an average employee, and that you'll learn it. They feel comfortable doing it. Like for me at EY, I had gaps to come in as a senior manager. I'd never been a consultant technically. I hadn't developed new business technically, stuff like that. But they knew me. The partners, I spoke with several partners. They knew me. And they knew that I was going to come in and kill it. And I did for them. So that's why I still have these work relations with them. If you have those gaps, you can't overcome it in a resume. You got to overcome it with relationships. So the question we have from Patrick. I'm starting my MBA in a couple weeks. How would I go about getting part-time experience while I'm in class and communicate that with employers? That's a tough one, because the first thing I'm going to say, part-time experience doing what? And I'm going to say, what are you getting an MBA for? And I will tell you that maybe 1 out of 100 actually gives me a real reason why they're getting the MBA. Most people get an MBA because the university system makes a lot of money off of it. They have a GI Bill, and they decide it's going to get them a 6-figure job. And they can't tell me what they're going to use the MBA for. And so I'll say, unless your MBA is at a top country, top 5, top 10 ranked MBA program at Ivy League schools or whatever, it's a check the block in a lot of ways. And so what I'll say is, before you start that MBA, make sure that you're pursuing the right degree. And secondly, you get focus points on MBA. Focuses on a lot of the MBA programs. If you have an opportunity to get a focus on your MBA, please don't focus on leadership or organizational development or whatever. Instead, focus on a hard skill like finance, accounting, whatever. That's going to open up so many more doors to you. And so, the challenge we have with part-time experience is part-time experience doing what? I don't know what you're getting an MBA for. So you can leverage your network, but I mean, most of the roles that are going to be aligned with an MBA are going to be, they're going to be full-time roles. And so what I would do is work with the company to see if there are internships available. that they can connect you with summer internships or whatever. I would really focus heavily on networking and really just trying to find an opportunity for somebody to bring you in part-time. It's going to have to come from the network. So there's that one. All right. Next topic. I'm going to finish on time today. The next topic of the week that I already spoke about, and this is kind of like the wrap up of the last week's content, is the no time and rank, time and service requirement for promotion. And let me talk about this. So many transitioning military, when you ask them what they want to do, especially if they're retiring, they're a senior leader, enlisted officer, will give you a rank. What I mean is, I want to be a director. I want to be a senior manager. I want to be a program manager, not a project manager, a program manager, because I'm a retired sergeant major. This was me, and I should be in charge of projects. And the challenge is, with great titles, with great pay comes great responsibility. And what I see is, even the ones that successfully get into those high-level roles, you got to understand, you are being hired to hit the ground day one and knock it out of the park. You're expected to perform, not to learn the job, not to fill gaps when you're talking about the higher level roles. And so what I have to tell people is that the military promotes you based on potential, right? Like they promote you. I was a first sergeant, then I was a J2 at White House Communications Agency. Then I got selected for sergeant major, went to the academy, and then they promoted me into the battalion CSM job out in Japan, Camp Sama, Japan, the 441st, right? I had never been a CSM before. I'd only been a first sergeant or a staff position. So they promoted me based on potential, right? The private sector hires you based on experience, right? So if I'm hiring an HR manager, in a lot of times we can't afford to hire someone that doesn't have experience in HR to be in charge of people running an HR function, right? Because HR's job is to keep us from getting sued and to manage the workforce, paying benefits, compensation, all this other stuff, right? State registrations, labor law, employment law, all the compliance stuff. And so we are hiring you to come do a job. And so what I will say is, I have seen personally senior leaders land really high level jobs in the private sector, in consulting, and not make it much further than a year. I think about 14, 15 months is where they realize you're not going to cut it, right? So if you don't make it 2 years in the big four, it wasn't a success because they give you runway. And so they didn't make it because they came in too high. They didn't have the foundational knowledge and experience to be able to just start operating at that level. And so for me, when I was getting out, I had two major opportunities I wanted. One was director of workforce management for a small federal IT company, individual contributor role, and the other was to be a manager at EY, which is a fantastic, well-paying position for a name changer on your resume, the brand. And I chose the director of workforce management role, not for the title. I chose it because it was going to give me, as an individual contributor in a small business, the opportunity to fill my gaps more quickly. I could get involved in HR. I can get involved in operations. I can get involved in capture, business development. I had free access to the C-suite to go ask questions, right? I could work with the IT team. I had a chance to earn so much experience in that small business. And so it was either manager or the director of workforce management. I chose the director of workforce management role. And then 1 year later, I came into EY as a senior manager, which probably would have taken me 3 to 5 years if I'd started off as a manager at EY. So because I filled them in that 1 year at ProSphere, I vaulted 5 years into the future in what would have taken me the other way, because it would have taken me longer than 3 years, because EY would have been focused on this. And so what I'll tell you is that there's no time and rank, time and service requirement out here, right? Stop focusing on rank, stop focusing on titles, and really spend the time to understand the field that you want to join and what your 5 to 10 year plan is and where you should start on that ladder. right? Because if you start off, like if I'd gone into EY as a senior manager, I would have been like a slug. They would have been like, they would have never said it to my face, but they'd been like, this guy has no pipeline. He's not, working on pursuits. He's not writing I didn't know what any of that was, right? It would have taken me a long time to get that. But 1 year later, I'm a high performer, fast tracker. That's the difference. If you come in one level too high, you're a slug. One level too high, you're a slug. Coming at the right level, and you apply all the things that got you to your success in the military, that work ethic, the values, the leadership, the hard skills, the learning, the flexibility, all the things that help you become successful military. You apply that, it is a launch pad. I'm not going to do this. It's like straight up. There's no time and rank, time and service. Here's the thing. The major consulting firms, like the Big Four, will typically have an expected amount of time for promotion. So like I said, 3 to 5 years. Some will have an up and out, 3 to 5 years to make senior manager. Maybe you can get up to 6, 7, 8 years as a manager. If you're not a senior manager by then, you got to go. So they have like some built-in time and rank process. But the big thing about it is, and please leave this up, the big thing about it is, if your company won't promote you, but you filled those gaps and you're a high performer, somebody else will. Somebody else most definitely will. And that is the key to like launch pads for a lot of people is, you get an offer for the next higher job based on what you've done in this one, right? And so I've seen people not be able to get promoted in the Big Four in one Big Four. And you know what happened? They went to another Big Four and got that promotion 2 years earlier. And so keep that in mind. So any recommendations how to build metrics for leadership? Throw them out. Let me know when you find a job that requires metrics for leaderships in the job description, Brian. Like that's the challenge, right? We're taught in the military to focus on leadership. And the private sector, leadership is a secondary skill. Even in a management or supervisor position, you have a job first, a job function that you have to speak to, and the leadership is part of it. And even when you talk about the numbers of people you lead, we typically only lead 3 to 5 direct reports out here. You don't get a credit for the whole organization. You get credit for what you've done in your 3 to 5 direct reports, right? Or the section that you lead. And so, you've got to take that stuff out, Brian, all that kind of stuff out. And what you have to do is you have to figure out what you want to do, because I don't see that in what you're saying here. So what you have to do is you have to talk to people in different jobs that interest you, learn what they do, learn what metrics they collect, right? What metrics they track to show success, what their biggest challenges are. If you talk to 5, 10 people in the same field, you will know not the metrics for leadership, you will know what's important to them. And then I guarantee you can look into your background and find examples when you've done just that, right? So it could be a hiring function. It could be if there's a retention role, it could be there. But you know what? Your readiness could be a training bullet, or it could be, a process improvement bullet, right? You just have to figure out what's important for that specific job and be able to reflect it appropriately. All right. Next topic. I got 2 topics left. The first one, who's your favorite NFL team? And if you're smart and you want to be fit into the process, you will say fly, Eagles, fly, right? Philadelphia Eagles, first place in the NFC East. Most of the season, we're going to be there. The Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately, I think it's your last year with Micah Parsons. But the Eagles won this week against the NFC championship level Green Bay Packers. Good first game with real coaches. We've got a great lineup. Excited to see them win. We play the Atlanta Falcons. Thank you, Alexander. We play the Atlanta Falcons this week. I think Kirk Cousins is about as mobile as I am. And so even Olivia jumped in. And so I just, don't forget to share the personal on social media and LinkedIn as well. It's not just for saying work and everything else like that. I can never be a fan of Oregon again after what Chip Kelly did to my Eagles. So I don't know if that's Oregon Ducks or Oregon State, but somewhere in Oregon with those shiny green uniforms, like Chip Kelly destroyed my Eagles years ago. But thank you, Donna. But I just don't be afraid to post about your personal stuff, about the hobbies, about the exercise, the trails, your sports team, you in a jersey, you at a game or whatever. Those things are what really bring us together. And I'm at the point now where Michael, I know he's Eagles fan. He's flied. I also know Sam P is an Eagles fan. So Rick Cheeseman is a big Eagles fan. I've seen him post several times. There's a lot of very prominent Eagles fans out there. And so I appreciate the support. And you know what? There will be some fun banter towards those Dallas Cowboys. But at the end of the day, those personal items are what bring us together. Oh, it looks like Martin is a Green Bay fan. And so what I'll say is, yeah, the refs helped make it even close. It should have never even been that close. So let's go to the final topic so I can get done on time. I'm going to say we went back to the hiring potential. We hire on the private sector hires and experience. I just want to say that the most important part of your resume is what my friend Gary Steensgaard shared. He said he went to Society Human Resource Management networking event. He had his resume. He met a senior mentor, handed her the resume. She looked at it and said, Gary, this is an amazing resume. I see you're a first sergeant in a recruiting company. You've got over 20 years of experience. This is a fantastic looking resume, but you know what it doesn't tell me? It doesn't tell me you could do this job, right? So when we talk about our resumes, the initial take is we want to try to fit everything we've done on 2 pages or less. And the reality is nobody cares, right? The most important thing, and I don't talk federal, the most important thing is bright, clear, front and center, jump off the page, smack you in the face, clear that you can do this job, right? So take the job description, do the informational interviews, really learn what people actually do every day, right? Learn what they do every day, learn what metrics they track, what their biggest challenges, because if you know what their biggest challenges are, then you have the answers to the test. And then you just go into your resume and put it in there. Make sure that the title matches, make that sure that that little paragraph at the top clearly says that you meet the top requirements for the job, and then get right into that experience section and make sure there's impact bullets in your resume that align to specific skills. And I will say one of the big things I see is people will list keywords. I will go and look and make sure every one of those keywords is matched up with an impact accomplishment somewhere in the resume. If it's not, it's a garbage word and I throw it out, right? So I want to see that it's got to be meaningful. It's got to be relevant to the job, and you can throw all the rest of this stuff out, right? And if you've done enough informational interviews, you already know what you need to reflect, right? And that's the key. So if you don't know what you want to do, right, start listing out jobs, start reaching out to 5 to 10 people every day. Say you want to connect. Hey, you're a veteran. I'm getting out of the Army, 6 months to a year, trying to figure out what's next. Would love to connect and maybe get some advice. If they accept, say, thanks for connecting. I'm struggling here. Do you have a few minutes for a phone call in the next few weeks? If they say yes, they most likely will. You have a phone call. You make it more about them than about you. You ask them questions about what they spend the time on, their challenges, their metrics, follow-up questions to really understand it. You send a thank you note. If they told you to do something, you go do it. You follow up and say, hey, you told me to go talk to so-and-so. I did. Or read this book. I did. Or watch this video. I did. Thank you for the support. It's fantastic. And that is your path to mentorship. That is your path to turning mentors to sponsors. And that is your path to developing the network and gaining the information that you need to find your success in whatever that is. So with that, I am 30 minutes on the dot. Thank you all for joining today. Next week, we'll do this again, and I'll do a post to let you know who we're doing the session with. So every week, we're going to do a new session, pick a new person for a mentorship. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your week.